listening to Wake Up and Read the Labels, your guide to eating simple and feeling good. If you want to eat clean and feel your best, guess what? You're in the right place. Each week, we talk about ingredients that may be holding you back from feeling your best. We also talk to some brands that are going against the grain and actually using real ingredients we can recognize. Plus, we're sharing stories with people who are just like you, who actually woke up and read the labels. Welcome to Wake Up and Read the Labels podcast. If you listening, if you have symptoms that are being ignored by your doctors, this conversation you're about to hear will hopefully give you some reassurance that it's not all in your head. A lot of us suffer from a burden of toxins, and they're showing up differently in each of us. My conversation today will help a lot of you decide where to start in order to feel better. Welcome, Dr. Jess Peatross. Is that right?
Yes, you said it perfect. Thank you so much.
Of course. I am so excited to talk to you about so many things because I feel like we just live in a world of toxins right now that even if you are healthy and you're doing all the right things, you're still being, fed these things, right?
Yeah, it's really ubiquitous in the environment now. So I think our perspective maybe shouldn't be to avoid all the time or, because it's impossible. It's impossible. But what you can do is make your body more resilient. So don't necessarily pray for things to be easier, pray to be stronger type of mentality.
I like that. Okay. Yeah. A little prayer included. Start your morning off very well. Okay, Dr. Jess, why don't you tell me, you are a board certified doctor, right?
And I was previously. I did not continue my board certification, actually.
Oh, okay. So I want to know the difference kind of between board certified and conventional doctor versus functional medicine, like kind of define what you are so that people can understand why we're even talking about these things.
Absolutely. So I'm a little more of a rebel probably than most conventional docs. I really, when I see a problem, I don't sit around and just continue the problem. I really try and change or be in integrity with myself. And so I was a conventional board certified hospitalist in internal medicine previously in what seems like a past life. And now, I started to see cracks in the system, discharging people on 40 different medications. And, there's Coke and Pepsi contracts in the hospital and Cheetos and factory farm meat and processed dairy. And I really started to see problems with how we were feeding people sickness and then treating sickness and making money on both sides of the fence. And I thought that other doctors would want to know about this, but I was actually labeled a disruptive physician. And told that if I didn't shut up, that I could quit. And so I quit.
Are you wanting to eat better, but this clean eating thing's just a bit overwhelming? Maybe you just don't know what to cook, or you don't know how to find the clean product swaps at the grocery store. Well, I want to make this simple for you. You can get clean swaps and an anti-inflammatory recipe delivered to your inbox every Saturday by going to thelabelletter.com. What made you notice all these things? Because there's many doctors out there, right? And they're doing a lot of good things, but they don't notice that, the Pepsi machines and the awful poisonous food being served to their sick patients has anything to do with their health. So what made you notice this?
I grew up in a home in West Virginia where my mom was a dietitian. And granted, she was promoted the food pyramid, which is kind of like believing in Santa Claus now. But, even back then, she would, our snacks were fruit. She cut up strawberries and, berries and things like that. And so I was already kind of knew the importance of food because of my mother. And I'll be honest with you, Jen, it was really social media. I hope you can understand, because people would make these, I was following a lot of health accounts. They would make these outlandish claims and I would think, well, they didn't tell me that in school. And I would go look it up and I would be humbled, and say, okay, well, they didn't teach me that in school. So what else didn't they teach me in school? And so I just sort of went down the rabbit hole at that point. I'm not someone who just goes by the status quo. If I see something wrong or I know better, I do better. And I really pride myself on my integrity. And so I had a problem with what I was seeing, and I couldn't sit in it. I couldn't just sit and be a cog in a wheel.
So disruptive.
Yeah, so disruptive. I was.
Yeah,
I was.
For the right reason. And you know what? People should be a disruptive consumer at the grocery store. People should be a disruptive patient of their own health, right? This should speak volumes to people.
I mean, how does the saying go? Dissent is your job or your responsibility as a citizen. So it is. And, I couldn't just stand by. So, that sort of, I guess, sort of pulling the string on the sweater, and everything sort of unraveled for me. And at that point, I was like, I can't continue my board certification. And what that means is that the American Board of Internal Medicine certifies you every 10 years. You have your active board certification. And that's an 8-hour test you go in and take, where you have to pass the answers to their questions. Even if you disagree with the answers to the questions, you have to understand what they are looking for as the correct answer as a conventional physician. And so I didn't see value in their testing any longer. And I didn't want to be a part of that system either any longer. And
go ahead.
I ended up surrendering my medical license in the end, actually.
Okay. So how many years did you go through, I guess, the medical school program?
It was 4 years of medical school, then 3 years of internal medicine residency. And this is after 4 years of college, of course. And then after that, I could be a hospitalist. And I was board certified the first 10 years, but chose not to continue that.
Okay. So then how did your route change?
You're still able to see clients, and most of the people I saw in the holistic world didn't matter anyway, to be honest with you. And so, it didn't change anything for me. I could still see people. I could still practice the way I wanted to. I could still, call in medications if I needed to, all that stuff. It did change when I surrendered my medical license, however. And I did that for doing childhood vaccine exemptions in California. So.
Okay. So what type of patients are you seeing? Is it a specific type of practice?
Well, previously I was working at a naturopathic clinic in California. And so the naturopathic doctors, really practice like I do. I practice like they do, I would say. So I was tag teaming with a pediatric naturopath, and we were following the law of SB 276, or SB 277, where we were going down the line about what patients had to have wrong to be able to have a vaccine exemption. And they retroactively punish us under the law. So now, my specialty even then, is mold, Lyme, environmental toxicities, how to epigenetically change our DNA for the positive by removing some of those things that shouldn't be inside the body and replacing them with things that should. A lot of our natural minerals are replaced by heavy metals, for example. And so really getting those out of the body so that the bodily processes can run normally again. It puts people back in normalcy, lets them feel like themselves again. And that's what I love.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about people being filled with toxins. What are you seeing in these patients? What symptoms, because there's probably many listeners out there that have no idea that their body's full of toxins and that they're suffering from, something that is hurting their health. So what should they be looking for?
Yeah. Most people just attribute it to normal aging, and it's not normal aging, unfortunately. So there's a vague number of symptoms that people can experience based on their unique DNA. And so what I see a lot from people is severe fatigue, joint pains, sometimes migrating joint pains, multiple chemical sensitivities, a lot of histamine problems these days, which cause, bloating and brain fog and anxiety and all rashes, all types of things, a lot of nervous system dysregulation, anxiety, depression, insomnia, hormonal problems. All these things aren't normal. They're common, but they're not normal.
Okay. And so if somebody has one of these symptoms, is it, you got these symptoms, you have mold exposure. You got these symptoms, you have Lyme disease, or no? How do you rule these things out for someone?
Right. This is a very nuanced art. And this is what I call the art of healthcare, the art of medicine, is being able, because each person is bio-individual and unique. And just because one person has joint pains doesn't mean they have Lyme, but it may mean their neighbor does sometimes. So it's really an art of like taking a very thorough history and physical on a patient for at least an hour, hour and a half, and then tracing back their antecedents, their triggers, when their symptoms started. Did you just have a root canal put in before then? Did you have breast implants put in before then? Did you live in a water damaged home? And if you did, is that still affecting you or not? Because each person is nuanced and each person has different genetic different genetic predispositions that will be brought out by the environment that signals them. And so really it's about treating each patient, hearing their story, and putting the puzzle pieces together for them. And so I wouldn't just say just because someone has a handful of symptoms, they are going to be diagnosed with this. So really, if you really want to know, you got to test and not guess. And there are some great tick-borne panels I like to look at. There's some great urine mycotoxin screenings and blood panels I like to look at for that stuff.
Okay. You mentioned, because I'm sure people listening are like, oh my gosh, she just said, what if you got a root canal? What if you've been exposed to, mold or water damage in your area? Also, breast implants. Kind of let's break those down. Why? Yes. What does a root canal have to do with someone's health? Spoken from, by the way, I've had 3 root canals, 2 of which have been removed. And I could talk a whole episode of what I've noticed with my body getting those removed. Just because I got those in my early 20s and I just didn't know, right? You go to your your dentist, and they're like, hey, your tooth has been damaged, one of which got damaged from chewing popcorn one time. A kernel got cracked. It was like emergency. Yes. And so when you're in the chair, the dentist says, we have 2 options. We can pull this tooth or we can do a root canal. And to the average patient, they don't know the long-term effects of root canal. You just always think, save the tooth, don't pull the tooth. So what's up with the root canal, or I guess the mouth and health connection?
Absolutely. So the oral microbiome the oral cavity has a microbiome just like our gut. In fact, the oral cavity is the opening to our microbiome in our gut. And so each can influence the other, because what we've been led to believe is the body works in separate systems, and it does not. It works as a whole. And I'm going to prove that point with the mouth here. The mouth sort of acts like a human homunculus. That means, like, if you look at your foot, different parts of your foot represent different organs or different muscles. The mouth is the same way. Each tooth is connected to a nerve that runs to the brain, and each tooth is connected to an organ system via the meridians. And a lot of the holistic dentists now know this and talk about this. And so when you do a root canal, you're really, digging into the pulp. You're actually filling it, usually with chemical substances, and they're not cleaned out very well all the time. And it's really the only place we leave a dead tooth, a dead part of the body in the body, and think it's okay. And there are thousands of porous channels within a tooth where bacteria can hide and live and reproduce and continue a simmering pocket of infection that sometimes can burrow into the bone of the mandible and actually decay the bone. And so it can be a silent problem for people. But the body is constantly having to go there with its immune system to take care of the simmering infection. So a lot of people will feel fatigue and brain fog because it's right here next to the cranial cavity. Bacteria can transcend different nerves into the cranial cavity. And on top of that, your body's constantly having to send energy there to fight for you. And so, this simmering pocket of infection can be a big deal, especially for sensitive people. And it usually doesn't show symptoms at the mouth. It shows symptoms systemically, meaning you may have some joint pain. You may have some problems with infertility. And especially with wisdom teeth that are removed, that's right on the stomach meridian. It's on the reproductive meridian. So a lot of things can happen with people who have simmering infections just from wisdom tooth removal, from root canals that are actually silently eating away at the jawbone, or a simmering pocket of infection called a cavitation there. And so really people need to look for a holistic dentist, someone who can do a 3D cone beam scan to look and see if there's a dark area of infection or bone loss or something. And it's really important because root canals they're man-made. They only last, 10, 15, 20 years. They're not going to last as long as your body does. Just like pig valves, when they do artificial fat valves, need to be changed every 10 to 15 years. Just like breast implants, they're usually going to have problems at the 8 to 10 year mark for most people. And that's because these are man-made objects put inside a God-given body.
Yeah, of body rejection, right? There's this cool book called 6 Foot Tiger, 3 Foot Cage. You can take charge of your health by taking charge of your mouth. It's really cool. It gives holistic. Ooh. Yeah. You ever saw it?
I've never heard of this book. No.
Yes. So I go to a biological dentist here in New Orleans. And you guys can just Google find biological dentist in your area. You can type in your zip code. You can find the closest one. Did you look it up? Did you look up the book?
I'm looking it up right now, actually.
It's pretty cool. Anyway, it's a good read on your mouth and organ connection and some solutions to that. The other thing is you quickly touch base on breast implants. Like I have a friend who has breast implants and bless her heart. Like she doesn't go anywhere or do anything because she has such debilitating symptoms to the point like she wakes up and she has to put ice packs on her eyes for 30 minutes, even to open her eyes. She lives in just chronic fatigue and anxiety. She has inflammation. I mean, she's got everything, joint pain. She says she can't eat any food. She doesn't know what it is. And I'm like, girl, have you ever heard of breast implant illness, BII? She's like, never heard of that. I'm like, wow, light bulb. Yeah. So, do women come to you who have had breast implants that have these symptoms and like what goes on?
Absolutely. And they'll have these very, again, vague, no doctor can figure it out, kind of like your friend type of symptoms. And they're things like joint pains. They're things like autoimmunity. I see a lot of autoimmunity with breast implants. They even form this granulomatous looking tumor if this silicone migrates. And silicone is found in silicone and saline breast implants. And it's not silicone that's natural. It's silicone that is nothing but a chemical toxin. They have platinum cross ties. There's upwards of 50 different chemicals, including epoxy resin and heavy metals inside of them. So if there's any sort of leaching whatsoever, and a scan is not perfect, guys, just like a cone beam scan sometimes doesn't catch a simmering infection in a tooth. It's not 100% accurate. So our scans the same way for breast implants. Just because they don't see a big hole in the implants doesn't mean it's still not affecting you. So if you really look at your symptoms, when did all that start? Was it shortly thereafter and after the implantation? And the perfect storm would be some sort of emotional trauma that happens right around the implantation. Then that's a perfect storm for someone to develop an autoimmune condition or something similar from something like breast implants. And you're right. A lot of them do have mood disorders, anxiety, depression as well.
Mm-hmm. It's wild. It's like a roller coaster of things. So I'm asking personally, I've mentioned this many times on my podcast. I would absolutely love breast reduction and breast lift. I've had 2 kids and I just want smaller breasts. I'm like, I wish I didn't have to wear a bra sometimes, or I could just wear like a simple easy bra to go, walk around my house. But no, some people may say gifted with big breasts, but I say, no, they are a pain in the butt. But I've also read things about, doing a breast lift or a breast reduction. It can change the lymphatic drainage of your body. How do you feel about that procedure? Or do you not feel anything about it? That's okay too.
I feel like, anytime you go under the knife, there's a risk, right? Let's be really informed fully. If there's a chance of that. Let's think about it like your capillary system, your lymphatic system is these delicate kind of highways, bunch of interstate highways of different tiny little microvessels. And so any sort of you have to think any sort of operation where they're kind of moving things around or adding things might impact the weight of, how those vessels perform. So there's a chance of that, you got to think about people get liposuction, that thing they dig down in there. Think how damaging that is to the fascia, lymphatic systems. So with a lift and a fat transfer, the only thing I've heard negatively is the fat can migrate sometimes and not stay exactly where they put it. The other thing is, you really want to make sure they're cutting you open and they're causing some scar tissue. It's just naturally how the body recovers and heals you is forming more fibrous, dense tissue. Say, next time we're cut on, it's not going to be that hard. We're going to hold you together now. So that scar tissue sometimes needs to be readdressed since it's been cut on. So it's something like neural therapy, which comes from bioregulatory medicine in Germany and Switzerland. They also believe scars are an interference in the body, just like root canals or breast implants.
So scar tissue, it messes up the drainage.
Because the nerves are, the nerves are part of the autonomic nervous system. It's not just your brain. It's also in the nerves where you feel. Anywhere you can feel on your skin has nerves that are firing so you can feel things. So when they're cut on, they get tenser and maybe they start balling up into a nest and they don't fire completely right in the piezoelectric grid they're supposed to. Mm-hmm. So injecting along the plane of the scar, especially with C-sections or any sort of midline scar where it's going to affect the energy of the body the most, injecting along that plane of the scar with things like procaine, which is natural. It's an anesthetic that helps drive the homeopathics like Traumeel or lymphomyosat deep into the tissues. What that does is it's like liquid acupuncture. It talks to the scar. It tells the fascia to unwind and relay again. So really you can inject people upwards of 20 times and the scar will be gone.
Wow. Incredible. Okay.
So there's your answer, Jen. If you really want to do that, you can do it. Your body can heal.
I know my body can heal. I know. Yes. I'm also just a chicken. So
I get it.
I had my surgery scheduled with my friend who's actually on my podcast. He's a plastic surgeon. His name's Dr. Trey Sands. And I was just like, Trey, I just don't want this anymore. This is so like, it even hurts my neck and back. And he's like, if you've been thinking about it a long time, like you're ready. And so I got up to night before surgery and they basically say, you got to scrub yourself down with this, bacteria. Yes, you got to do that. And you got to take an antibiotic. And I'm just like, this is so against anything I like. And so it's like, all right, I'm either going to do that or I'm going to go to my hot tub and drink a glass of wine. And so I went to the hot tub, drank a glass of no added sugar, organic, sulfite-free wine, and text him. And I was like, Trey, I'm not showing up in the morning. I'm fine. Yes, but I do want to text him and just say, I've been thinking about you every day for an entire year because I still want it. Still do.
I mean, you have to kind of, there are going to be risk and benefits involved. It's kind of like what we started at the beginning of the podcast with. I said it's ubiquitous. You cannot avoid toxins in the environment. It's sort of like pick your poisons.
Yep.
If you're educated, what is something that you really want? There are options if you go under the knife for repairing the fascia and the lymphatic network.
Yeah, talk about pick your poison. So for a lot of people, a lot of people make content. There's a clean cereal out there. It's called Lovebird, and it's made with cassava flour. And then you got what's the girl's name? Lead Safe Mama. She had this piece of content that just went so viral. I need to make a piece of content based off of it, but everybody's like, I can't eat cassava. It's high in lead. I'm like, hold your horses, you guys. There's a lot of foods high in lead and you're getting exposed to a lot of heavy metals. Don't just worry about cassava and lead. So let's touch base on that. It's so important. Everybody needs to hear this. In fact, when I make a piece of content, I'm sharing this podcast with it.
Oh, I love it. I would like to say that anytime anything comes from the soil, let's take humic and fulvic acid, carbons, you're going to be dealing with organic heavy metals. They're not inorganic. They're organic heavy metals. They are found in the soil. They are found in different mines. This is kind of like what Prop 65 is, a little bit of a scam in my honest opinion, because they put that on everything and say there are heavy metals in here. Well, they come from the earth. The earth is heavy metals.
This is natural. We naturally detox heavy metals, right?
Yes. And, people will say lead gets in the bone. But I can show you a very small study where it shows that you can sweat out lead better than you can poop or pee it out. And so, it's a great thing to know that things won't be stuck in your body and aren't a death sentence for the rest of your life.
Okay. So you say sweat. So let's talk about, do you know different sources that people are getting exposed to lead or even heavy metals? Or what is the most scary heavy metal that people should be aware of? And should people even be aware of heavy metals? Like it's on their brain. Is it Is it to be actually worried?
Here's the thing, and I'm probably going to say something that most people haven't heard here a little bit. So yes, there are certain people whose jobs predispose them to heavy metals. Certain, welders or people who work on highways or, that are pouring and using man-made toxins on the regular. But there are people who I know that are super, super, super vigilant, and they are probably more vigilant than me even. And they use nothing with heavy metals. They won't even touch receipts because of BPA on the receipts. So these people, I will do a total tox test on them and they'll have heavy metals off the charts.
Wow.
Like, where did these come from? Where did these come from?
Air, water?
Everywhere, right. But what's the difference in these people? The difference is they may not detox well. Maybe they have a few genetic mutations or variations that are causing them not to be able to detox. But what caused those epigenetic mutations? And what causes them not to be able to release these heavy metals in their natural emunctories or drainage pathways, whereas other people can? If you can't release a thought, you can't release a heavy metal.
If you can't release a thought, you can't release a heavy metal because you
can't release a mycotoxin spore. You can't release a Lyme bacteria. You can't, because your body is so in flight or fight, holding on, resisting. Healing only takes place in rest and digest. And if you're so imbalanced on that side, your drainage is clogged up. Your insulin is being released differently. Your blood sugars are being impacted. Your neuropeptides and neurohormones are being impacted differently because everything is skewed. And so your body is holding on to things because it feels unsafe.
Yeah. And so people are like, that was a lot, Dr. Jess. How do I actually know if I have heavy metals? There's testing for that?
Absolutely. My favorite test is Vibrant Labs Total Tox Test, which looks at mold, looks at environmental toxicities like pesticides, it even looks at Roundup Ready or glyphosate. It looks at different phthalates and forever chemicals and rubbers and things like that. And it also looks at heavy metals.
Okay. So what are the best methods to detox heavy metals?
Really, there's a small study that shows that certain heavy metals, like I said, lead, cadmium, mercury, can be sweated out of the skin. And so that's why I really promote things like sweating and binders when the time is right for that. I really promote just opening people's drainage and getting them out of flight or fight. So if you're exposed to things, they're going in the body and they're not coming out, they're going in and not coming out, then we need to work on how does your body get rid of it? I can give you a magic pill that gets rid of all the heavy metals and toxins in your body. But guess what? Your body's
going to come back.
It still has to digest that pill and assimilate and absorb and then make it filter through the liver or the kidneys so you release it. What if your liver and kidneys don't work? That pill's not going to be released anyway. So I have to open up your natural drainage, your sweat, your bowels, your liver, your kidneys, your lymph. All of that stuff has to be turned on. So then whatever goes into you that's making you sick, your body's like, release. And that's a big deal. And so one of my goals was to figure out why certain people could release things and other ones couldn't.
Why?
It's usually some epigenetic changes that have resulted from trauma and excess methylation that have epigenetically, the environment has signaled the change in their DNA. And they usually comes with some sort of continued stress or trauma in their life. And there's genetic predispositions. And then again, if you're stuck in flight, fight, or freeze, then you're not going to be able to release things like your body naturally is supposed to.
And so how does one actually release that?
Yeah. So it's really about becoming a human being and not a human doing. You're not supposed to be doing all the things you're doing all day long and distracting yourself from emotions by scrolling or watching TV or whatever our vices are. And so people need to feel safe in their body and in their environment. They need to feel safe to eat food. Some people feel triggered because they don't know what reaction they're going to have from food. And that's a trauma response. Your body will continually form histamine and cause histamine reactions until you trust something greater than yourself and your body, which is the best physician there is. And so I put people in a lot of nervous system dysregulation courses like Primal Trust, Dr. Gupta's program, DNRS. And then I have a mindset coach that helps people really get down into like inner child work and psyche work and, reversing, feeling where the pain or the problem is in their body and talking to that organ system. What color is that trauma? What shape? How does it feel? That kind of stuff really helps people get in touch and inside their bodies, where usually they're up here and analytical. They don't even know how to talk to their body. They don't even know how to read it. They don't speak the same communication or language.
Yeah. Unfortunately, they're so busy and they're probably are, a burden of toxins that they have lost touch of.
Yes.
Being, like you said, being. Okay. I know that people will come to me about the whole cassava having lead, and I let them know you're getting exposed to lead, like you said, pretty much everywhere, but in your drinking water, in your air, in your spices. And so ways to get rid of that, you're saying sweat.
Sweat is one. Detox, opening the liver.
Yep. And what I would love to mention is Sunlighten has a infrared sauna. I got that. I do it every day. It makes you feel so different. How do you feel about infrared saunas?
I love them. I'm such a fan. Oh my gosh, such a fan. And I'll pair it sometimes with an herbal antimicrobial if someone needs it. And then 30 minutes later, I'll have them take a binder, and then I'll have them get in the sauna because, we're killing things off. We're mopping it up and binding, and then we're sweating it out. And that's my kill, bind, sweat protocol. I am very cautious nowadays because people are such in flight or fight and so demineralized, which is what happens when you are stressed and you sweat a lot. So I really want people on minerals and remineralizing if they're on some sort of sauna program.
Okay. So where would someone naturally get minerals? Do minerals bind to toxins as well?
They can. Actually, there's something that minerals do called ionic mimicry. And let's say you have aluminum in your body, and aluminum has a 2+ charge in its valence. So what does that look like? It kind of looks like magnesium to the body. So aluminum can get in the way of the 600 different enzymatic reactions that are in the body that require magnesium as a cofactor, and actually get in the way, almost like it lodges up and stops the enzymatic process when there's aluminum there rather than magnesium. And so people will start to have trouble making ATP in the Krebs cycle or electron transport chain because they have metals that replace cofactors instead of minerals. So when you give minerals to people, a lot of times they can start to displace these metals. And then if your drainage is open, your body will naturally get rid of them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So why don't you share? I know you have a one-on-one virtual clinic where you can help people. Yes. Let us know some information on how someone can work with you, how you would help, treat them or remedy them. And then also a story about someone who may have suffered from some awful symptom in a way that you help them.
Absolutely. So let's see. If you guys are interested in working with me, obviously I do a lot of free stuff on social media and all that stuff, but you can actually see me in consultation now. I'm functioning as a health coach, and I really love it. And so it's app.drjessmd.com/consults.
Okay. And we'll drop that beneath the podcast.
Absolutely. And then that way, you guys really can just set up a discovery call to see if it fits with you before you talk to me. And then it's either a 5 or 8 month program for people. And we try and make it as affordable as we can with everything covered under the one price. Labs, supplements, all that stuff. And I'm really having fun seeing people, because what I've helped with the most and what I've seen the most lately anyway in my career, Jen, with the new clinic, is it's been only one guy and all women. And all the women come to me in flight or fight or functional freeze. And I can't even get them started on anything until I look at that. And a number of things have happened. I've helped people with their teeth recently. They've had some cavitations and all their symptoms were coming from their teeth. So once we got them the right dentist and we fixed that, all their symptoms went away. Someone had parasites and full body eczema, and a lot of the protocols have helped them reverse some of that and get back to themselves and be able to sleep through the night again. So it's really just about bringing people back to normalcy, and it's not me doing it, it's them. They do all the proactive work. I'm just a mere guide, actually. And so that's really, I guess, the meat of the clinic is mostly women and how to bring them back to themselves with their hormones, their sleep, their digestive function, all that stuff.
All right. So they should go to your website, and then you will help kind of identify what's going on in their body, correct? And then I know you have some supplements.
Yes, absolutely. So thanks for mentioning that. So the supplements is Aegis Formulas, AEGIS formulas.com. And that is a new company that I just launched, I guess, maybe 2-3 months ago. And our first product, we only have one product out right now called Nano-Glut B. That is a liposomal nano, which means less than 1 micron, methylated B vitamins, vitamin C, and glutathione that you hold in your mouth for 30 seconds and it 100% absorbs. It doesn't have to go through digestion.
That's really great.
Yeah. And so it's really awesome because it gives people energy, people with MTHFR. It's made for them. It helps them detox. It's almost like a liver detox as well with antioxidants. The second product is launching next week, and that's Post-Pill Ease. And that is made for women coming off of birth control pills who have post-birth control syndrome, anxiety, can't sleep. You may be having itchy rashes or feeling kind of puffy and not like yourself. And again, not just for everyone coming off birth control. If you want to balance your hormones too, that one is also great for that.
Awesome. And so while we're talking about birth control and women, how do you feel about PCOS? Why do we have such an abundant amount of cases now?
Absolutely. So PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, there's some hallmarks you see in women. Classically, they'll say they're overweight. I've seen them underweight as well. They'll have polycystic ovaries, high testosterone or androgens in general, maybe some hair loss, extra hair on the face, things like that. We call it hirsutism. So for these women, there's a lot of things, environmental toxicities out there that act as hormone or endocrine disruptors play a big role in this. Stress and high cortisol, which, if I liken the endocrine system to a stool with 4 legs, one's the liver, one's the sex hormones, one's the thyroid, and one's the adrenals. So you can see how if cortisol is high from the adrenals, it would affect the hormones and the liver and everything else that's involved. There's also a matter of liver stagnation as well as gut dysbiosis and leaky gut. And what we've seen is the ratio of bacteria that help to turn estrogen back on and can be reabsorbed may be a little lower in these people. So this has a lot to do with the gut, the bile, the liver, stress, and environmental toxins that are fooling the body that look like hormones.
Wow. Okay. So many things. I've done a podcast with someone, I forget her name, but it was all about PCOS and it had a lot to do with insulin resistance as well. Absolutely. Well, the liver makes glycogen and glucose and helps work with the pancreas to tell the pancreas when insulin needs to be released or not. So the leg of the stool, that's the liver, involved with the adrenals, involved with the sex hormones, involved with the thyroid as well. So all that ties in together. The connection instead of, conventional medicine. It's like, oh, something's wrong with your liver. Let's treat the liver. Something's wrong with your uterus. Let's get a hysterectomy. Things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. You know why they call it a hysterectomy, right?
No, why?
Because back in the early 1900s, they thought the hysteria that came from women would be removed if we removed the uterus. Now called a hysterectomy.
Fun fact. Any more fun facts you got to share?
I'm full of useless information.
I love it. Before the crowd make them go wild. This is fun.
Oh gosh. Yeah. I mean, just you guys, seriously, you wouldn't believe how perfect your body is. It's the best physician there is. Make sure you remove man-made things. Look for damage in your house and your environment. How is your environment changing your genes? It's not your body. That's my best tip.
Best tip. I love it. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Jess. You've been amazing. Everybody go follow her on social media. Check out the links below. She can help you virtually, and her supplements can also help with some of your symptoms. So we'll talk soon.
Thank you so much, Jen. It was lovely.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Wake Up and Read the Labels. If you like this episode, guess what? We want you to share it. We'd love that. Share it with a friend and leave us a review. You can subscribe in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or really wherever you're listening to your podcast. For more information, visit us at wakeupandreadthelabels.com.